The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of KSMQ Public Service Media Incorporated or its assigns.
Welcome to Garden Connections. I'm your host, Stephanie Passingham. On today's episode, we're going to be showing you a couple of gardens in contrast. We'll be visiting Kerin Marek, who has a beautiful garden in Rochester, Minnesota. She was recently on the Rochester Garden and Flower Club Tour, and you will definitely understand why. She has a beautiful garden. She has a steep slope that she's worked with. She's got some shade, and I think you'll really like what she's done with some of the natural elements in her yard. We'll also be here at Sliver Farm, which is a working market garden, and we'll be checking out drip irrigation. And Chef Larson gives us a great recipe for fried red tomatoes. I hope you'll stay with us for Garden Connections. Welcome to Sliver Farm. We're going to be working in the high tunnel today, and as you can see, our end walls are off. We're in the middle of summer and we don't need that extra heat, that extra protection. We've also rolled up sidewalls and it's starting to get hot, and we're going to be talking about drip tape in here. If you remember the last time that we were here, we were out in the outside part of the garden and we were putting a protective cover over some of the melons that we had planted. We were trying to keep off some of all that rain and provide a little extra heat. Well, in the subsequent weeks after that planting, we had even more rain, and it actually washed the dirt and the seeds away. We've replanted those melons. They're up and they're coming along. We left the structure of the rebar in place. We took the plastic off because in the heat of July and August, you really don't need that extra cover. But we left the rebar in place because we definitely are going to need the season extension this year because everything has gotten such a late start with some of our replanting. But today we're going to be talking about drip tape and irrigation, and you might think that with all the rain that we did have, that's something we wouldn't need to consider this time. But in a high tunnel, when it's covered from the outside rain, you really need to be providing some moisture to your plants right at the root zone, right there. You don't want to be watering any extra weeds, and you don't want to be carrying a watering can up and down the rows like we have been so far. This gets heavy after a little while and it takes a lot of time. So drip irrigation is really something that we're hoping will help save us some time and provide some good moisture to our vegetables and help them grow a little faster. So what we've done is we've purchased a kit here, and I've got my trusty helper Kerin, who is almost always with me in the garden. We're going to unpack this kit and take a look at what's inside. We've got a component that's going to actually just attach right to our garden hose. So this works with just any regular garden hose system, so it's nothing fancy. You don't need any extra special attachments. The kit comes with everything. This piece here is a filter. We have well water, as many folks do, and that will kind of help keep the drip tape clean. So this is a filter that we'll want to rinse every once in a while. And of course, it's also got a component that prevents any backflow into our well from the garden. So we've got kind of a filter set up here, and we've got all kinds of other parts. The main component that the water is going to run through first is what they call this main line. This is a little bit thicker tubing and it's less flexible, and we're going to run this down the front end of the high tunnel, and our drip tape lines are going to feed off of that. So we're going to start there. We're going to lay out our main line, and then we will attach the drip tape to it. So, shall we get started? Stop. So we're going to run this tube on the inside of the high tunnel. We're going to stretch it out just along the front side. We've got plenty more than we need, and we'll cut off the excess. So we have the hose all stretched out. We left a little bit of a tail coming out of the high tunnel a little bit so we can reach the hose and use the other end of the hose. We've got a splitter so we can use it for other purposes out here in the garden. And we're going to take this piece that we have the filter on and we're going to attach it to the hose, and then we're going to attach it to the pipe. So Catherine, let's put it on the end of the hose. Let's see if we can get that. Yep. Let's just spin it around. So we've got the main line in place. We're going to put an end cap on and we're going to start inserting the connections for each row's drip tapes. So while we're working on that, we'll have you guys check out Kerin's place. It's really terrific. I think you'll like it. Well, Kerin, thank you so much for inviting us to your home. You have a beautiful garden here, and you've got quite a slope. You really have addressed a challenge that many homeowners face. You were showing me some pictures earlier of what this looked like beforehand. Tell us a little bit about what you did to the property when you started landscaping.
When we started the project, when I bought the home, the entire hillside was filled with buckthorn, or covered with buckthorn, which is an invasive tree, shrub.
Right.
You know, it comes in the different sizes or different stages. So we basically just started clearing. You know, it's cutting the buckthorn and treating it with woody brush killer. Glysulfate is
and that
the
keeps
technical
it from
name.
coming back?
Yes, yep, exactly. And you do always have pieces that'll come up here and there, but so it's just treating it, you know, throughout
Constant
the season.
monitoring, okay.
Yeah, and then just filling in with plant material.
Wow.
You know, it's evolved over the last 4 years. This is the 4th growing season for the garden. So,
but really, a lot of mature things in here. They look great. So you've done a really good job of getting them to grow.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
We're obviously in a shaded area. You've got lots of trees here and hostas. You have some beautiful hostas. This is a common plant that people put in the shade.
Yes, yeah.
But you've chosen a number of varieties. But remind viewers why hostas are great for a situation like this.
Yeah, hostas will do very well in a deep shade or even a dappled shade area. And with the tree cover that I have, it's actually pretty dappled sun in here. So there are areas where it'll come through. And a lot of the hostas actually like a little bit more sun.
Okay.
The gold standard variety, which is this one here,
this is just beautiful with
does
the
really
darker
well.
green variegation on the edges.
Yeah, just a beautiful plant.
Yeah.
We also have the Regal Splendor hosta here, the more blue in color.
Right.
So yes, the different varieties, you know, do real well
Really do
in
great,
that dappled sun.
Yep. Now you've put mulch on your pathway here, and it looks like a little bit up into the area with the plants. Any special type that you would recommend for folks?
Well, there's always just the natural mulch, and what I have done over the period of 4 years is, you know, when the garden first went in, it's putting a thick layer, 3 to 4 inches of mulch on.
Boy, that's
is
a lot.
really, really important. And using the natural mulch. The other option is it's a colored mulch or a stained mulch, and you can see that throughout the pathways and down in front.
Yep.
But again, having that thick layer of mulch in the beginning, and it actually has conditioned my soil. The soil here is very clay. So with that mulch breaking down, it has conditioned
Adds
it.
a little organic matter to that and loosens it up.
Yeah.
Great idea. Great
So
idea.
it's
Also
really
helps,
well.
I'm sure, with weed suppression.
With the
This is
weeds,
a huge landscaped area, so I imagine weed control is on your list.
Yeah, and it's really not a problem. I do spray herbicide maybe once every 2 weeks, but you know, that's about all that I do.
You have some beautiful garden art here. I love the whimsy in some aspects of the garden. You've got
Thank you.
plates and birdhouses and all kinds of sculptures. What do you love about that? I see you've really incorporated that well into your garden.
Yeah, I do. I appreciate the fun part of a garden too, being a little bit more whimsical. You know, with the plate, the birdhouse. I've also got the metal sculptures, which come from a friend of mine, Dave Smith, down in Pepin, Wisconsin.
Okay.
He does an incredible job with metal sculptures.
Those are really dramatic. They're so big.
They are. They're actually a coneflower that is sits on that rod, that rebar, and it moves in the wind.
Oh, okay.
So it's fun
So
that way.
it's not just a static piece of artwork as well.
No, it actually moves, so I like that.
Another favorite of mine is you have these mushrooms out here that have kind of a mosaic on them. And I understand you make these yourself.
I do, yes. Yeah, that's something I do in the winter months when I don't have a lot going on.
Okay.
And we all know how gardeners like to have projects in the winter.
Right.
So yes, yeah, I've been doing these. I actually took a class about 10 years ago over in Wisconsin and learned how to put them together, and I've enjoyed doing it.
And what are they made of?
years.
And how do you use, I mean, are those ceramic pieces on the outside? Or?
It's the form, the base is made out of a metal lath.
Okay.
And then it's cemented. We do a layer of cement on that lath form. And then I buy old plates, you know, go to the thrift stores and get plates.
Okay.
And
Yep.
I use tiles
just pottery
sometimes.
and tiles?
Yep, and just break them up and
Great.
mortar them on, and then it's just grouting the piece once
To
it's
fill
done.
in the pieces. They look
Yeah.
great. Really
Thank
a
you.
nice addition.
Thank you.
I can hear some water in the background.
Yes,
I would
yeah.
love to see the water feature. Let's go take a look.
Okay.
And this is a beautiful one that you put in here on this hillside. It's just gorgeous. I love the sound of water. I don't know what it is about that, but it just is so soothing. Tell us how, from a mechanical standpoint, how did you do this? I mean, must be recycling, right?
Yes, yep. The pump for the water feature sits down here in the pond, and there is a 2-inch hose that's connected to the pump, and we're actually standing on top of where the hose comes up, runs all the way up to the top here into a biofalls, which is a large box. And the water is pushed up through the bottom of that box, through layers of, there's barley straw, there's lava rock, there's several things that filter the water before it comes up and over.
Okay.
And yeah, and as I said, up and over and then down and just
And then down it comes,
recycles.
and back up again.
It's actually a 7,000 gallon per hour pump.
Wow.
So there's quite a bit of water that goes through here.
That is. And do you run it 24 hours a day then?
Yes,
You do?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's good to keep the large pumps going continually.
All the time rather than start, stop, start, stop.
Yes,
Easier on
yep.
them. All right. You've incorporated some beautiful natural features. I love the moss on that log up there.
Yes, yes.
Really from an architectural, I mean, it's just so interesting.
Yeah, it, with incorporating the two pieces of, those are actually oak branches that I found in the woods, and to incorporate those and to make it look more natural. I mean, it just added just so much to the area. And then to be able to keep that moss growing on that log, it's shady enough and the humidity is enough with the water coming over the falls there that it keeps that moss growing. So it does add a lot, yes.
It's beautiful. You have some wonderful textures bordering your stream as it comes down. You've got kind of spiky things and really soft, round things. Tell us about some of the plants that you have planted right next to the water.
I do try to keep a lot of color and texture going in a situation like this. So I have different evergreens throughout the area. This one here being a garden juniper, and there are 3 of these throughout the area.
Okay.
I also have Lysimachia, or moneywort. There's several spots of that.
Yep.
Japanese maple.
So that's quite short. Did you trim it to be that short, or will it eventually grow very tall?
That is just a shorter maple.
It's just a shorter version?
Yeah,
Okay.
yep. So it will get longer. With the winter conditions that we had this last year, I did lose a section of it, so it was a little bit taller and bigger last year.
It fits, though. It fits the
It
space
does.
well.
It does. The Japanese forest grass is another perennial that I really like using with that foliage color. But yeah, to me it's all about color and texture.
And you have done a great job in balancing kind of your softscape, your plants, with your hardscape. Some beautiful rocks here. You've got a gorgeous black and white kind of marble one down there.
Yeah.
And you've got what looks like pieces of glass here, this colored turquoise. Where did you find that?
I actually found that from a gentleman down in Iowa, and it is called slag. I believe that is the correct pronunciation. It comes from out east, from the glass companies out there that, you know, it's just extra pieces of glass.
Leftovers?
Yeah. I've got a turquoise one and then a brown one down below here. So.
And they fit in beautifully.
Yeah. So something different.
That's great. You also have beautiful lighting in your garden. We have this lovely tree that's lit that I'm sure looks gorgeous at night. I noticed you have uplights throughout your garden. Did you wire this whole hillside to accommodate lighting?
I did, yes. I have a transformer located off the deck area, and then just, the low voltage lighting. And when I had originally put them in, I used just the regular low voltage lights, but now I'm gradually switching everything over to the LED lights, which of course takes so much less energy.
Yep.
And you can use so many more lights with the amount of watts or the amps that they take.
So your garden probably looks just as beautiful at night as it does during the day.
It does look very nice at night too, yes.
Great, wonderful. Well, you have a gorgeous place here. I see you also at the bottom, you have a pond and you have some koi in there,
I do.
Is that right?
Yes, I do.
Do you leave them in all winter long?
No, the fish are brought into the house. And I put them in a stock tank over the winter.
Okay, so they hang out inside. Great. You have such a beautiful place, Kerin. Thank you so much for inviting us to view it and share it with folks on Garden Connections. I really appreciate it.
Yes, you are more than welcome. Thanks
Great
for
garden.
coming.
Perfect day for lemonade on your deck. Maybe we should try that out.
Sounds like a good idea.
All right. Wasn't Kerin's place beautiful? Well, we're back in the high tunnel. We're going to return to our drip tape project, and what we've done is we put in the main line and the spigots that come off of that. Now we're going to actually roll out the drip tape itself. As you can see, there is a tiny hole about 12 inches apart all down this tape, and we're going to run this the length of the high tunnel. So Catherine, will you take this end and walk all the way to the other end, please? We've got that cut. Now we're going to attach it to this hose and then twist this down on it to hold it in place. All right. And then we will take the tape itself and run it down the middle of the row. Ideally, you would want to do this before your beets get so big. It's a little tough to get in there today, but this heat really has popped them in the last week or so. They're looking great, so I'm pleased. We're going to get a little more water on them and we'll see the bulb of the beet to develop a little bit more. We've still got just a lot of green, and we're working on developing the root of these guys. And of course, when you do one project, you always notice some things that need taking care of here. For example, you always do a little weeding when you're doing another project, but this is a weed actually. It's called lamb's quarter. And I want you to take a good look at that. That's something you'll be seeing in an upcoming episode with a really unique purpose from Chef Larson. And speaking of Chef Larson, he's got a great recipe for fried red tomatoes for us today. Red tomatoes that aren't quite ripe in the garden. We know you're anxious to get out there and start eating some of your produce, so let's see what he's done with fried red tomatoes.
Hi, I'm Chef Stephen Larson. Welcome to my kitchen at Quarter Quarter Restaurant in Harmony, Minnesota. We're going to do some fried red tomatoes with a salsa verde, or a green butter sauce. So first thing we need to do is make that salsa verde. So salsa verde has a lot of different iterations around the world. The one that we're going to do uses capers and celery and garlic. So we're going to need 1 large clove of garlic for that. And we'll give that a bit of a slice first. Even though it's going to go in the food processor, we'll give it a start before it goes in. We also need a goodly shot of parsley, so this is ½ cup of packed parsley, some capers, which are the unopened flower buds of the caper bush, some anchovy, which is actually quite delicious with tomatoes, lemon juice, salt, pepper, and some hot peppers. Then we'll finish it off with some unsalted butter. So we'll put the capers, anchovy, parsley. I almost forgot the celery. We need that in there as well. So 1 small rib of celery, light colored leaves included. Our seasoning, and we're going to make this into a puree. All right, that's all there is to it. We'll take that out. And then we're ready to finish the dish. So the next component is, of course, the tomatoes. So we will start off by taking off the stem, if there's a stem there. And then we're going to cut the ends off of these. Now the tomatoes that I'm using are not quite ripe. These are a little bit firm. In fact, they're quite firm. And this is a really good use for tomatoes if you want to get in the garden. You just can't stand it before the first ripe tomatoes. This is really a great way to use these. Or it's also very good with a more traditional fried green tomato recipe, where you would use tomatoes that aren't going to make it to the frost. So we're going to cut each tomato into 4 nice slices. And we're going to bread those in a relatively traditional manner, meaning we're going to use an egg wash, flour, and then also some breadcrumbs. So a nice bit of salt and pepper on there. And then they start out in the flour, and you can do these a couple at a time. Then into the egg, and then finally into the breadcrumbs. All right, so there's our last slice. I'm going to use a large non-stick skillet for this, and we're going to get that over about a medium-high heat, and we're going to add some vegetable oil to that. So then once our oil is hot, we'll get to frying. So we'll put them in one at a time, You want to make sure not to crowd things in the pan when you're frying. So once they're golden brown on both sides, we're going to put them on a paper towel lined pan to drain. We'll just give that a quick swirl to melt it, and that goes right over the top. So there we have it, fried red tomatoes with salsa verde, because there's nothing better than eating fresh from the garden.
All right, it looks like everything is in place on our end. Thank you, Chef Larson, for that great recipe. So we've got the tape down, we've got the ends plugged. We're going to turn on the water and see if we've done our job correctly. Catherine, would you give us some water, please? I can hear it. Sounds good. Let's take a look. Did we do all right, Kat?
Uh-huh.
You can see there's just a steady drip, drip out of that hose. And what you'll want to do is you'll want to leave the hose on, depending on how much water you need, but at least for an hour, sometimes two, depending on how dry your soil is. And that will just slowly drip, drip into the soil, and it will end up watering both rows by the time it's done. Well, Catherine, thank you so much for your help. Really appreciate it. And thank you for joining us here on Garden Connections. I'm your host, Stephanie Passingham. Hope to see you next time. On Garden Connections, we'd love to see photos of your garden. Or if you have questions for our garden experts, contact us by emailing garden@ksmq.org or like us on Facebook.